All right, so we have the Gettysburg Address, we got the whole thing of, yeah, we're going after 3 appeals, okay? So, and I'm gonna make a little key on mine, E, ethos, P, pathos, and L, logos, okay? All right, now the first time though, the first step, you would have to imagine like with students who maybe have never read this before, maybe not, okay? They would want to read through this. They would want to read through this to get their bearings, okay? To get the basic gist down of what's going on here. What's the major vocabulary, that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to read it for the first time around too. So 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to go after is this 77 years ago. A score is 20 years, correct? Okay. So 87 years, is my math right? Okay. Our fathers. So our fathers. I'm going to ask a question around this. I'm going to assume that he's talking about the founding fathers, framers. Okay. Framers of the U.S. A new nation conceived in liberty. Okay. This seems to be something that's standing out to me, something that's important, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. Okay, so I'm having to read back through this sentence to really understand what he's trying to say here. Okay, so obviously, civil war. Okay. Testing.
Thank you.
So testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived can long endure. So I'm thinking that it's saying basically, can we make it through this? We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives, that that nation might live. Okay, final resting place, I'm going, all right, sounds like a graveyard, battlefield, so that this nation might live. So, sacrifice. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. Okay, so for the next paragraph, I'd like you guys just to read it on your own and please go through and think about how would you get your bearings with this particular text, okay? How do you go through and figure out just basically what it's talking about? Just go ahead and take 2 minutes to read through that last paragraph. Paper piece and identify. Switch to green. Yeah, if you could identify on here where you see pathos. And you can just highlight that part. If you use the other part of stylus, you can go ahead and choose parts. Okay, so Emily is selecting to be dedicated here to this unfinished work, which they through thought here have thus far so nobly advanced. Okay, Emily, why did you choose that particular one?
I thought it was an appeal to our passions to continue their work and to feel a loss for those that are gone. It tied us to their goal. So I thought it was an appeal to passion. We all have the same goal, but some have died, so it's up to us to take up the charge.
Thank you. All right, and Mark?
Me?
Yes.
Are you sure you're ready?
If you could identify, using the stylus here, one part that you thought spoke to pathos, or that fit with pathos. Just highlight it.
My thought just was an album. paragraphs.
Choose just one part.
Essentially mine.
Choose just one part. Just one.
Just draw a heart at the bottom and pass it on.
Shannon wants her to.
Okay, a new birth. New birth. Thank you, Maria. Thank you. Okay. And last up, Shannon.
Oh,
Choose one more.
it's your fault.
Yeah, first bird.
There you go.
The pathos part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and where did you highlight? Or was it?
Shall not have died in vain.
Shall not have died in vain. Okay, thank you. And why'd you choose that one, Shannon?
Just because it tugged at your heart.
Tuck to your heart. Okay. All right. Okay. The last step of close reading is new thinking, right? Now, yeah, probably a lot of students would go ahead and argue for pathos. I know most of the ones in my class did, okay? But there were a few who decided to go in a different direction and thought that they could prove it using other evidence. It's fine, right? Because they're trying to justify their thinking and that kind of stuff, right? What I would like you folks to do at the bottom of it is just jot down a sentence or two of your new thinking. After you've gone through and you've identified ethos, pathos, and logos, what are some of the things that you are thinking now about the Gettysburg Address? What's your new thinking around the Gettysburg Address, having thought through and picked out evidence? Just 2 sentences on the bottom. Our next step today is we're going to put the Gettysburg Address aside, okay?
We're excluding that.
Who's into it? All right, and in your buckets, what you will see is you will see 2 blue articles and 2 pink articles. So go ahead at your table and decide who is going to read the blue one and who is going to read the pink one. You each get your own copy of an article. Now, what we are going to do here is we know that sometimes it takes a few practices at something to get it down, to feel like, yes, we own this process and that kind of thing. But our purpose here is twofold. One, we are going to close read this particular article that you have in front of you. One of them is by Fisher and Fry, and it's called Points of Entry. And the other one, thank you, is called Closing In on Close Reading. Okay? So regardless of which one you have, pink or the blue, the purpose for reading is going to be the same. So if you could write this across the top or down the side of your article, wherever you can find a little bit of space. What are the major points made about close reading that you can apply to your classroom? Okay, so as you're reading through here, you're going to be thinking about how can I use some of this information in my classroom? How does it apply? So that's going to be your purpose for reading your particular article. And we're going to use a routine that is called Different Experiences for this. And it's something that a few other staff members and I, we've been reading a book called Productive Group Work. And it talks about how sometimes if you do one thing with one part of the class, or you give them a different task, like let's say half of our group has the pink article, right? And you give the other half the blue article. Ultimately, if you have the 2 opposites come together, then they can discuss and compare and then synthesize together. So that's what Different Experiences is all about. But our first step here is going to be to read for that particular purpose. And our goal is to try to follow those close reading steps that we just went through with the Gettysburg Address as we approach this particular article. So I'm going to give you folks about 10 minutes to go ahead and read your article, starting now. And then thinking about those things as a whole, taking those together, those pieces that you pulled out, what is your new thinking around how you might bring this back to your classroom? Just make sure to jot down a note to yourself on the back or on the last page of your article. Okay, and we are going to shorten this part up a little bit because I want to make sure that we have plenty of time working on our own text that you guys brought with you today. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You're going to have the blue articles, you have the pink articles, right? What you're going to aim to do is so that, for one, that we get up and that we stretch a little bit. You're going to try to find someone who is on the opposite side of the room from you, not someone who you're currently seated with, okay?
Okay.
All right? You have pink or blue. You're going to hold up your article, but before you move, once you get together to discuss, what I'm going to ask you to do is to share about some of those things you pulled out, about what were the things you thought from your article that you could possibly apply back to your classroom, and then maybe that final thought that you wrote to yourself. What was your synthesized thinking about the article as a whole once we were done with it? What was your new thinking? Okay? But we are just, instead of doing these other things, we are not doing this. We are skipping this entirely and keeping it discussion based so that we can move more quickly. Just talk about the question. And let's go ahead and let's take 3 minutes to do that. Please go find a partner with the opposite color. Go. 3 minutes.
Hey, partner.